Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a weekly series called The Network of Global Corporate Control that has been coming to you from DCTV for 2 years. Today's segment is live and is called Fencing. Thanks to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, director and studio producer, Maurice Jackson, audio and prompter, and Cruchet Starnes, floor director. Next week's show, which we are pre-recording later today, is taking stock of the global currency reset. JFK's assassination, followed 5 years later by his brother Robert Kennedy's murder, put the people of the United States on notice that something is rotten in the state of Denmark. I want to play for you now an excerpt from one of JFK's favorite pieces of music. After JFK's death, the National Symphony Orchestra played this piece, and the concert went out on the radio. That was the Adagio for strings. Music and humanity. Romantic souls tend to believe that true love never dies, and this is a quote from Dylan Thomas. Though lovers be lost, love shall not. Dylan Thomas wrote this in one of his most lovable poems. Music awakens humanity in humankind. It lifts man to higher levels of mutual understanding and helps bind people together. It stimulates the senses and makes us more sensible and sensitive. Simply put, music makes us better persons. Vladimir Yankelevich, a French philosopher who was also a fairly talented pianist, wrote a great deal about music. He wrote books about Fauré, Ravel, and about the expressiveness and morality of music. He held the view that music is a duo of hearts, and that it leads to the disarmament of the hearts of those who listen and are listened to. Yankelevich also believed that people rarely live their lives to the fullest. Very often, we just slumber through life and fall prey to l'ennui, which is existential boredom. We're not concerned with how best to spend our time, but with how we can let time go by. And yet, there are also moments and ways in which we are awakened from the slumber of everyday life. Moments that break the banality of being. They are intense and adventurous moments that open our hearts and challenge our minds to such an extent that we can no longer have the luxury of being bored and feel as if a deeper meaning in life is lacking. Love is such an adventure, and so is music. And I've taken actually this essay from a larger essay that was on the internet. Now let me tell you why I'm calling this segment fencing. It's because I am now fencing with the banking cartel on behalf of the Board of Governors of the World Bank, who have authorized me to speak on their behalf and also on behalf of the rest of humanity. The bread and butter move of fencers is the parry riposte that uses the weakness of your opponent to best advantage because it's impossible to attack and defend at the same time. When your opponent lunges, you catch them off guard and you come in from the other side. A good fencer knows their opponent's weaknesses and exploits them. I, along with the rest of the Coalition for the Rule of Law, have been fencing with the banking cartel, and we are using the banking cartel's moves to score against them. I'm going to give you 3 examples. One of the examples is about what you've been hearing about the firing of the FBI director. There is no Cold War with Russia. I already told you that the people of the United States and Russia are fighting a common enemy, the banking cartel. The insolvent banking cartel and its corrupt paper currencies are being exchanged in a global currency reset. When I exposed the reality behind the confrontation between Russia and the United States in Syria, the banking cartel started complaining about Russian interference in the bogus election in the United States. There was no real election in the U.S. Along with the rest of the banking cartel's lies, there could be no real election in the U.S. because the Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. There was fake martial law, which I also exposed. This, and I wrote the teleprompter a couple of days ago, but a couple of afternoons ago, there was a gaslighting housebreaker who stole one of my favorite earrings that was on my bedroom dresser. They did this when I went out to lunch with my mother. There's a lot going on right now. I said that humanity, which is now uniting in a coalition for the rule of law, is stronger than the banking cartel. I also started planning together with you for the global currency reset and said that we were going to take stock after the statement. Not everybody knows what's really going on. Most people still believe the lies of the banking cartel. The point is that a critical mass of humanity does know the difference between the banking cartel's lies and the real truth about the assets on deposit in the global debt facility, which we are talking about here on DCTV. Many agents of the cabal know about the critical mass of humanity that's aware. The banking cartel is pulling out all the stops now to try and derail the global currency reset. They are not derailing us, and people are starting to wonder what we know that the gloom and doom agents don't. More of us are starting to realize that the global currency reset is real, and the predictions of gloom and doom are not. In other words, things are coming to a head. The banking cartel is obviously trying to discredit me. This segment is called fencing because I'm simply parrying the banking cartel. Last week, I started answering your questions about how humanity is going to accomplish the global currency reset. In the pre-taped segment that we're going to be taping later today, I'm going to answer more of your questions. For the rest of this segment, I'm going to be parrying the attempts of the banking cartel to convince you that there is no global currency reset. The reality is that there is a global currency reset, and so I am able to document all of my answers. You will learn that we have actually been in the global currency reset since the beginning of December, and in that time, Many people have been convincing others that the banking cartel is losing, and we, humanity, are cutting off the banking cartel from interest on bogus country debt and preparing for the exchange of the banking cartel's fake paper money for money that's minted from the world's monetary gold reserves, and for local currencies issued by villages and towns, and then winding down the banking cartel. The banking cartel tried erasing my tweet showing that I'm the overseer mandate trustee of the Global Debt Facility, and then tried mounting a shill attack on my Twitter account. Many Catholic people are working with us to root out the evil which we are exposing today. The main point to make is that humanity is going to tackle questions about our spirituality and religion after we have ended the corruption in our money system. Questions about country debt are secular. Anyone who wants to keep their pension should read what we've been writing about the fake bankruptcy of Puerto Rico. The Coalition for the Rule of Law is defending you. And now I want to talk about a nuclear event off of South Carolina. There was an attempt to nuke the people in the United States in 2013. And so here is an email I'm reading to you, which I wrote to a man named Donald. Thanks, Donald, for your email. I agree that the banking cartel has no moves left. As for what we will implement in place of the banking cartel, I think the countries of the world are going to implement a simple, effective transition to gold as a holding pattern, and then each nation, and indeed each local area, can decide what it wants to do. Then it will be possible for local areas to introduce their own local currencies. Silvio Giselle, a German economist who lived in Argentina, proposed this. We can certainly transition to any number of exciting possibilities, but we will also have to work hard to prevent any backsliding. And I also wrote another letter to Donald. Thanks for your offer to provide testimony about the October 8, 2013 detonation of a nuclear device off the coast of Charleston. People have been retweeting the information you provided. I also read your email on an internet radio show yesterday. So far, nobody has doubted the authenticity of your statement. One person asked U.S. Congress to inquire into the incident, but the U.S. Congress is bought and paid for by the banking cartel. Why believe the banking cartel's lies? Most people understand that the banking cartel and the journalists are only reporting fake news. I already told you that a critical mass understands that the banking cartel is simply lying and that reality is very different. At the end of this post is the statement that enough people believe, including the Russian and U.S. militaries. The banking cartel is trying unsuccessfully to distract you from the global currency reset. The banking cartel's money supply depends on our using their fake currencies. This is no longer going to continue for them. The fall of the Twin Towers also alerted many to the corruption in our money system. Let me talk about a viral tweet of mine about 9/11 that I posted after the Securities and Exchange Commission refused to file the Global Debt Facility's financial statements. Americans are not stupid. All they have to do is look at the World Trade Center Building 7 and see they were lied to. Just put World Trade Center 7 next to a controlled demolition, or the Windsor fire of 2005, or the Dubai fire of this year. Actually, that was the year that I wrote this. I believe it was 2014. Just because the news doesn't report it, that doesn't mean that people do not know the truth about 9/11. I hear it everywhere I go. It's all about 9/11 and the lies associated with that. No one I know who has actually researched 9/11 believes terrorists with box cutters did it. No one. As I said, just go look at World Trade Center Building 7. That's all you need to know. And I wrote a comment on the CBS News article. People know about the corruption at the center of the international financial system, that the network of global corporate control revealed by Vitali Gladfelder and Battiston of Zurich grabbed power illegally, and there is no consent of the governed. Congress refused to convene a convention under Article 5 of the Constitution of 1789 after two-thirds of the state legislatures submitted applications for amendment. This has put the United States in interregnum. That means that we don't have a legitimate government. The Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF are replacing unconstitutional Federal Reserve notes now that the county executives of America and the National Taxpayers Union accepted the United States monetary gold reserves on behalf of the American people. The commissioner of the SEC has a copy of the financial statements of the Global Debt Facility containing the United States and other countries' international monetary gold reserves. As for CBS and the rest of the mainstream media trying to cover up the corruption, people simply don't believe them anymore. I informed Paul Dudek of the SEC's Office of International Corporate Finance, who returned my call of this fact. And then I'm saying that I'm a lawyer and economist who has been reporting corruption at the center of the world's financial system for many years. When I first started, I had no idea what I was up against. In my struggle, I learned to work together with other whistleblowers. We now form a network spanning many cultures and countries. Some of us will share our stories with you. I will lead off with two letters. The first, dated October 14, 2007, to Robert Post, the dean of the law school that I graduated from, Yale. The second letter is to the Department of Defense. Now, here's the letter to the Department of Defense. Will you help me go back to the World Bank in order to correct corrupt abuses of authority? And this went to the Department of Defense, and also to the Board of Executive Directors at the World Bank, who asked me to restore rule of law at the World Bank after they were threatened for removing Paul Wolfowitz from the presidency of the World Bank. And this is the letter that I wrote to the Dean of Yale Law School, Robert Post. I'm also forwarding my email today to Maryland's Attorney General Doug Gansler. That was written in 2014. He was then president of the National Association of Attorneys General. And this is what I sent to Robert Post. Per our conversation, here is some information concerning the Sarbanes-Oxley scandal at the World Bank. I would like to take you up on your kind offer of help in exposing this scandal to the public. I'm attaching a copy of my email I sent a month ago to the Wall Street Journal, but the Wall Street Journal did not correct their misleading story about the Volcker Panel's report. In 2005, the Dutch government asked the Audit Committee to end a campaign of retaliation against me for reporting to the Executive Board about an inaccurate evaluation on a failed banking sector project in the Philippines. I'm attaching a chronology of the scandal. Senator Lugar and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee have written 3 letters to the World Bank on my behalf, asking for an end to the ongoing cover-up. I also met with Chris Armstrong, that's Senator Grassley's aide, on the Senate Committee on Finance. I also met with Jamie Roth in Senator By's office and Nicole Willett in Senator Clinton's office. The Senate is asking the Government Accountability Office to investigate the World Bank in this year's appropriations legislation and requiring an independent audit of the World Bank's internal controls. And those inquiries went nowhere. The Audit Committee referred my case to the bank's Institutional Integrity Department, and that department, which reports to the president of the World Bank, is used to intimidate staff. Paul Volcker ignored INT's sinister role and simply recommended that whistleblower retaliation cases should be removed from their mandate. I met with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Dutch government on September 24, 2007. I've had several other meetings with them. The Dutch are not happy with the Volcker report and the ongoing cover-up. Moreover, the current and previous Dutch executive directors, Herman Wijfels and Ad Melkert, disclosed that third parties attempted to intimidate them and other members of the World Bank's board through shocking invasions of their private lives. I attach a translation of these stories. If the U.S. violated the safe conduct normally accorded to diplomats, it would be a great breach of honor. Article 7, Section 8 of the World Bank's Articles provides immunities to executive directors, officers, and staff. I saw that Ben Heinemann, who was a member of the Volcker panel, spoke at the law school on October 5th. On October 8th, at the suggestion of minority staff on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I contacted Kenneth Peel at Treasury to encourage the Bush administration to end the cover-up on the Philippines banking sector reform loan and restore the rule of law to the bank. I also attach the following documents, and then there's a lot of documentary evidence. My letter to the Volcker panel requesting an end to the cover-up, that was one of the documents. Anyway, I answer questions and I give you documents, so you can see that we're talking about reality here. We're talking about a cover-up in the center of the financial system. And here, don't scroll back. I want to read from a letter to the Department of Defense. Okay, go forward. I'm just telling you what the letter to the Department of Defense said. Dear Ms. Swanson, thank you for your request via LinkedIn, through which I have learned that you were manager of a Department of Defense project on the Sentia stakeholder analysis. Jacek Kugler ran an analysis of rule of law at the World Bank in 2004. In 2007, I warned the Treasury Department and U.S. Congress that the U.S. would lose the gentleman's agreement to name the president of the World Bank if the U.S. did not bring the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development into compliance on the capital markets. In 2010, the U.S. lost the gentleman's agreement. I warned the 50 state governors, chief justices of state supreme courts, state and federal attorneys general, as well as the Judicial Conference, that the Sentia analysis is now predicting a currency war with 90 to 95% accuracy because the clerk in the District of Columbia Circuit Court of Appeals refused to recognize the settlement of my bondholder lawsuit by 188 ministers of finance on the Board of Governors of the World Bank. The UK wants to know why it's taking so long to correct this simple clerical error. Once the UK and European parliaments published my statements and the Sentia analysis predicted resolution of the problem in favor of the rule of law. Okay, I'm telling you now that analysis is 90 to 95% accurate, and we are on track. Okay, do you want me to just talk about anything, or do you have more on the teleprompter? Okay, yeah. I filed a motion to seal the arrest record. You remember when Eric Holder was suing me for trespass. This was after the Board of Governors gave me a pass to go into the World Bank. And so this is what I said to the court, to the judge, who ultimately dismissed my case because there was no case. But they wouldn't take away the arrest record, which I was asking them to do. And so I said that they were supposed to seal the criminal records because I was actually innocent. The prosecution of my arrest for criminal trespass was terminated on July 22, 2013. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia has failed to respond to the motion to seal the arrest record. The Board of Governors of the World Bank, consisting of 188, now it's 189 ministers of finance, issued a valid security pass for me to go into the World Bank, and I attached a copy of that pass. And I was reinstated to the World Bank's legal department on December 20, 2012. That's after my case was settled. And my reinstatement is necessary for disbursement of the general capital increase. That's where the U.S. was supposed to contribute to the World Bank's equity. Most of the budget in the World Bank actually is because the World Bank's Treasury Department is issuing bonds and there's money that's being earned. It's necessary for the court to restore the confidence of the 188 member countries of the World Bank in the rule of law in the District of Columbia. For this reason, it's in the interest of justice to seal publicly available records of my arrest and the related court proceedings. The preponderance of the evidence supports this result. And of course, the court never did that. And what we have subsequently learned is that the courts are actually not real courts under the Constitution. What they are is they're collection agencies of the banking cartels. And the judges in them are not, their oaths of office, they're supposed to be insured. They're breaking their oaths of office because they're not sitting in real courts. And the insurance companies are collecting the premiums on the policies of the bonds, but they're not actually, they're not issuing real insurance, and there's no way to collect on it. This is just another facet of the very deep corruption. But of course, we now see this corruption, and the point about all of this is that all of the assets in the global debt facility, you see, they're sitting with us, and they do not belong to the banking cartel. The banking cartel is actually bankrupt. The only reason the banking cartel has any money is because we're using their fake currencies. And we can simply stop that, and that's exactly what we're going to do now that we've been documenting all of this corruption. And the way you can see what's going on with the corruption is that the fake currencies buy real things. And so we simply have to have real currency buy real things. And when I say real currency, I mean currency that's either minted out of the gold that's on deposit or issued by local communities, and the merchants in those communities agree in a kind of a barter system. So, should I do the outro now? Yes? Okay. I want to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. In this week's segment, I've used my skills as a fencer to show how each and every attempt of the corrupt banking cartel to frighten you was a lie. There is a coalition for the rule of law that's stronger than the banking cartel. We're winding down the banking cartel. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.